Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are plunging headfirst into one of history's most dramatic comeback stories. I mean, a truly near miraculous recovery.
We're talking about the Ottoman Empire.
Exactly. A state that went from total, absolute catastrophe in 1402 to achieving its defining imperial triumph just 50 years later in 1453.
It's an incredible turnaround. So our mission today is to really unpack the sources covering that specific period, 1402 to 1453, and try to isolate what allowed this to happen.
Yeah, the political, the military, the institutional machinery that let them not just survive what was basically an extinction-level event, but to come back and achieve their most ambitious goal.
The conquest of Constantinople. It really is a remarkable transformation in, just over a single generation.
And to really get your head around the gravity of this, you shouldn't think of the Ottoman Empire as, this steadily growing thing. Not in this period.
No, not at all.
I think the best way to frame it is to imagine a priceless, highly detailed porcelain vase. And in 1402, that vase is just dropped, smashed into 100 pieces on the floor.
That's a great analogy.
And our deep dive today is about tracing that agonizing, painstaking process of gathering all those fragments, gluing them back together, and finally applying this magnificent golden lacquer.
Which is, of course, the city that would become Istanbul.
Exactly.
But we have to stress just how unexpected that drop was.
Yep.
I mean, the vase was never more grand or, seemingly complete than in the years right before 1402.
Right.
Before the disaster, you have Sultan Bayezid I, known as Yildirim the Thunderbolt, and he had brought the empire to a staggering peak.
He was a force of nature, from everything I've read.
Absolutely. Just look at the timeline leading up to the collision. In 1396, he wins this colossal victory at the Battle of Nicopolis.
Against a massive Western European crusader army, right?
Crushed them. Absolutely crushed them. And that victory it elevated Ottoman prestige to a level no one had seen before in the Balkans.
And he wasn't just conquering, he was consolidating power at home, too.
Precisely. In Anatolia, he's aggressively annexing all these rival Turkoman principalities that are dotted around the peninsula. He takes Karaman in 1397. He's pushing against the Mamluks, taking cities like Malaya and Elbistan by 1399.
So the empire is centralizing fast.
Very fast. He's uniting all these disparate Turkic groups, and he appears just absolutely invincible. Spanning Europe and Asia Minor under one very, very strong ruler, he's ready to turn the corner into the 15th century as this dominant Eurasian power.
And then the ultimate counterforce arrives on his doorstep.
And that brings us to the moment the vase shattered, the Great Collapse, from 1402 to 1413.
Let's delve into that.
The shattering event, of course, is the Battle of Ankara in July 1402. And this was so much more than just a defeat. It was a political decapitation.
The sources from the time, they just convey this sense of pure shock, not just in Ottoman lands, but all across the Mediterranean and the Near East. The Turco-Mongol warlord Timur, or Tamerlane as he's known in the West, he invades deep into Anatolia and just decisively routs the Ottoman forces.
The speed and the totality of the defeat are staggering, especially given Bayezid's previous successes.
But the real disaster, the thing that made it truly catastrophic, was what happened to the Sultan himself.
Bayezid I, the Thunderbolt, was taken prisoner by Timur.
Wow.
And historical accounts, they really detail the humiliation. He was apparently paraded in a cage before Timur. It was an act designed to completely undermine the very concept of Ottoman sovereignty.
And his death in captivity a year later, in March 1403, just cemented that power vacuum.
So the state didn't just lose a battle. It lost its legitimate ruler, its central organizing principle, and its army all at once.
A total system failure.
Exactly. The sources are all unified on this. The defeat threw the entire empire into total disorder. It brought it to the literal verge of extinction. And Timur was very deliberate in maximizing that damage.
Right. His strategy wasn't to hold the land himself, was it? He had his eyes on campaigns further east.
Correct. He wanted to ensure the Ottoman state could never, ever pose a threat to him again. He wanted to dismantle the entire structure. He didn't just retreat. He actively reversed the last few decades of Ottoman history.
He essentially hit a reset button on their expansion.
That's a perfect way to put it. Timur went through the painstaking process of restoring independence to all those rival Turkoman principalities in Anatolia.
The very ones Bayezid had just centralized.
The very same ones. We're talking about critical regions like Karamania, Teki, Menteşe, Sarukan, Aydin, the list goes on. Kastamonu, Erzincan, all of them handed back to their former ruling families.
The political intent there is just so clear, isn't it? It wasn't just a territorial loss, it was fragmentation. It was designed to pit local rivals against any centralized Ottoman authority for generations to come.
Absolutely. Temur ensured that any subsequent sultan would have to waste decades just reconquering their own backyard.
And that fragmentation, that chaos, leads directly into what the sources call the Interregnum, or Fetre de Vries.
A decade of brutal civil war. From 1402 to 1413. This is the period where the broken pieces of your vase are just scattered all over the floor.
And the only real power left is the military might of Bayezid's surviving sons, Isa, Musa, Mehmed, and Suleiman.
And they fought each other viciously, vying for control of what little coherent territory was even left, mostly the European lands, Rumelia, and the core of Western Anatolia.
The cynicism of Timur's strategy here is just chilling. The sources paint this picture of him deliberately encouraging this fraternal conflict.
Oh, he was actively meddling. The most pointed example is a diplomatic document he sent to Suleiman, one of the contenders.
What did it say?
It was a formal diploma. It invested Suleiman with all the Ottoman possessions in Europe. But here's the kicker. It formally confirmed Suleiman as a Tartar vassal.
So he was legitimizing the split, but under his own authority.
Precisely. He was appointing one son as his proxy ruler in the West, just to undermine the unity of the rest. A classic divide-and-conquer strategy, ensuring that while his army was still in the region, the Ottoman military machine remained totally fractured.
Incapable of mobilizing against him.
Which is why the next detail from the sources is so critical. And frankly, it's so surprising. It's the moment that genuinely saved the Ottoman state from being wiped out completely.
And this is where we have to talk about the truly unexpected role played by their traditional enemies.
The Greeks and the Latins.
It just sounds so counterintuitive. Your enemies saved you. But the historical accounts, they fully support this.
They do. After the Battle of Ankara, Timur sends his massive, victorious Tartar forces to annihilate the remnants of the fleeing Ottoman army. He pursues them ruthlessly toward the coast.
You get this incredible visual from the contemporary accounts, right? Shattered Ottoman soldiers, refugees, just streaming toward the Sea of Marmara and the Bosphorus.
Desperate to escape the slaughter in Anatolia and reach the relative sanctuary of Europe.
And who is waiting on the other side, controlling the sea lanes? The very maritime powers who should have everything to lose if the Ottomans survived.
The Greeks, and especially the Latins, the Venetians and Genoese, masters of the straits. And the sources say they actually vied with each other in helping the Ottoman refugees cross to Europe.
It's a moment of just profound historical irony. Why would you save your enemy? What was the thinking?
Well, a Venetian eyewitness account confirms it was driven by deep commercial anxiety. At first, they hesitated to transport the Osmanlis, but then the Genoese started secretly ferrying them across, with help from the local Byzantine Greeks.
Ah, so it was a competition.
It was. The Venetians were terrified of losing future commercial favoritism or access rights in these now broken Ottoman territories, so they immediately jumped in to help too.
So it wasn't some grand geopolitical strategy, it was just purely short-sighted commercial self-interest.
Exactly. They were looking past the massive, world-altering threat of Timur, who they saw as transient, and back to the local manageable threat, or so they hoped of, a weakened Ottoman power they had to coexist with.
They completely misjudged the threat hierarchy.
Completely. And by helping the core of the Ottoman military escape destruction in Asia Minor, the Byzantines and the Italian republics inadvertently saved the structural integrity of the Ottoman military and its political elite.
They preserved the most vital piece of the shattered porcelain vase.
And Timur saw that weakness immediately. It's noted that he was utterly disgusted by it. He had basically offered the Christian powers a chance to wipe out their historical rival forever.
And they refused to cooperate. They prioritized temporary profit over the total, permanent destruction of the Ottoman threat.
That short-sightedness bought the Ottomans the decade they needed to start rebuilding. The sources even showed Timur tried to leverage this, demanding the surrender of the Ottoman navy, which had fled to Gallipoli. But the Byzantines and Venetians resisted. They had already been made their bed by helping the army.
It's a remarkable pivot point. The Ottoman state, or what was left of it, survived the scattering and the civil war simply because its neighbors failed to capitalize. The peace was saved.
But now it had to be painstakingly glued back together.
And that moves us right into the long, hard work of our second section. The restoration gluing the pieces back together from 1413 to 1451.
And this is where we transition from just chaos management to actual state building. The master craftsman who initiated this process was Mehmed I.
He really earned his title, the second founder. He finally emerges as the undisputed victor of that brutal civil war in 1413.
And this wasn't just a military victory. It was a complete political reunification of the scattered lands. It brought the decade-long Fetret Devri to a close and signaled the true, difficult start of the recovery.
The challenge must have been immense. He inherited a fragmented bureaucracy, a depleted treasury.
And territories that had just spent 10 years fighting each other. His first job was internal stabilization, and that meant crushing the dissent that had just metastasized during the war.
The sources are clear that this instability wasn't just political, with rival princes, it was also deeply socio-religious. The most prominent example is the revolt of Shah Bedreddin in 1416.
Right, and Bedreddin was far more than just some mystic. He was a highly educated jurist. He'd even served as a Kadi Asker, a chief military judge, under Musa, one of Mehmed's rivals.
So he had real institutional credibility.
He did, but his teachings grew increasingly radical. He promoted a form of syncretism, the merging of Muslim, Christian, and Jewish beliefs. And more dangerously for the state, he advocated for communal ownership of property.
Okay, so that's a fundamental threat to the entire social and economic hierarchy, especially the militant landowning classes.
A massive threat. The sources describe his movement as a huge popular uprising of peasants and dervishes, mostly in Rumelia and western Anatolia. It tapped into this profound economic distress among the peasants and the discontented nomadic groups, the Uriks.
And it was led by figures like Berkluce Mustafa and Torlat Kemal. Right, this was a multi-pronged rebellion.
It was. And Mehmed I realized the existential danger of this kind of internal ideological split.
So how did the second founder deal with a revolt that challenged both his political authority and the economic stability of his new state?
With overwhelming force and zero hesitation. He had to mobilize his newly re-established central army and suppress the rebellion across multiple regions. Bedreddin was eventually captured and executed in Suez in 1416.
A brutal and swift end.
It had to be. That suppression was necessary to reaffirm the central government's control, not just geographically, but institutionally and ideologically. It sent a signal to everyone that the chaos of the Interregnum was over. State authority was absolute again.
That suppression laid the foundation. But the sources show that the bulk of the really intense consolidation work that fell to Mehmed's successor, Murad II.
Who took the throne in 1421. Murad reigned for 3 decades, and this is the period where the vase fragments are really meticulously glued together under very high pressure.
His focus was twofold, as I understand it.
Right. Restoring the power of the central government by methodically dealing with those newly independent principalities in Anatolia.
Which must have been demoralizing. Weren't these the same regions his grandfather Bayezid had conquered decades before?
Yes, the cycle of reconquest was frustrating, but it was unavoidable. And Murad used a mix of everything, warfare, diplomacy, dynastic marriage, to reabsorb these Turkoman principalities.
So it wasn't just fighting?
Not at all. He relied heavily on marriage alliances. He married his own son, the future Mehmed II, to the daughter of the powerful Bey of Dulkadir. It was patient, high-stakes diplomacy aimed at restoring the unity Timur had shattered.
It shows a sophisticated understanding that centralization wasn't just about winning battles. It was about integrating these elites back into the Ottoman ruling structure.
Exactly. But while Anatolia was a long, complex political chess game, Europe was a life-or-death military struggle.
The other side of his focus.
Yes. The continuous threat of a new, unified Christian coalition, mostly Hungarians, Poles, and various Balkan states, trying to push the Ottomans entirely out of the Balkans. It was constant.
So Murad had to fight just to secure the European lands, Rumelia, which had actually been the stable core during the Interregnum.
He did. And his decisive actions in the West are what gave the empire the security it needed to fully focus on its destiny. We really have to look at the 2 pivotal victories of this era.
Varna and Kosovo.
Let's start with Varna in 1444. The political maneuvering leading up to it is key. After a series of campaigns, Murad signed the Treaty of Szeged in 1444 with the Hungarians.
A 10-year truce, right. It established clear borders.
It did. And Murad even retired shortly after, believing the long conflict was finally settled. He abdicated in favor of his young son, Mehmed.
But the Crusader side, spurred on by papal legates, immediately violated that peace treaty.
They did. Seeing the old Sultan retire and believing the Ottomans were weak with a boy on the throne, the Christian forces, led by King Władysław of Poland and János Hunyadi of Hungary, immediately broke the treaty and launched a massive offensive.
Toward the Black Sea coast, near Varna, It's a tremendous failure of trust, but it sets the stage for one of the most important battles in Ottoman history.
Murad had to come out of retirement to lead the army, and the Battle of Varna was a crushing total defeat for the Western Crusader army. King Władysław XI was killed on the battlefield.
And what was the impact of that victory?
It was transformative. It didn't just win a campaign. It annihilated the credibility of papally sponsored crusades in the region for a generation. It showed that the Ottoman state, even recovering from all that internal strife, was militarily superior to any combined Christian force that could be fielded against it.
And then just 4 years later, in case anyone hadn't gotten the message, we get the Second Battle of Kosovo in 1448.
Kosovo just cemented the victory at Varna. Hunyadi tried another massive mobilization, gathering forces from Hungary, Wallachia, and others. Murad met them on the very same field where the Ottomans had famously fought the Serbians back in 1389.
And the sources confirm it was a 3-day bloody confrontation, but ultimately a complete victory for the Ottoman side.
It was decisive. The key takeaway from the sources is that after Kosovo, no major coordinated Christian coalition was effectively formed in the Balkans again before 1453.
So Murad had secured the European frontier. He restored the territorial integrity lost after Timur's invasion and ensured that this newly rebuilt state was safe from external existential threats.
He had finished gluing the vase back together. The pieces were secure.
So by the time we reach the 1450s, the state is consolidated, its borders are firm, the military is disciplined. The question shifts from mere survival to, well, to destiny.
And this sets the stage perfectly for our third section, the vision of the Golden Apple.
The man ready to apply that final coat of golden lacquer was Mehmed II. He ascends the throne for the second time in 1451.
He briefly ruled as a young teen when Murad temporarily abdicated before Varna.
Right. And now he's back, but he's older, remarkably young, still only 21 years old. And he's inheriting a state that is mostly stable, thanks to the decades of work by his father and grandfather.
But as you said, the empire remained incomplete. It lacked its heart. It lacked its central jewel.
The capture of Constantinople was Mehmed's clear and unwavering objective. This was more than just a strategic conquest. For him, it was the ultimate act of imperial legitimization.
For over a century, that city had been an affront, a perpetual obstacle sitting right in the middle of Ottoman territory, controlling the straits.
The sources all stress the strategic position, controlling the Bosporus, connecting the Black Sea to the Aegean. It was essential for economic and military domination. But its defenses,
the legendary Theodosian walls. The reason it had repeatedly frustrated his predecessors, it was the prize that legitimized everything that came before.
And Mehmed understood that to capture that prize, he needed not just military genius, but absolute, unchallengeable internal authority.
Which leads us to one of the most brutal institutional insights that was derived directly from the trauma of the Interregnum.
You're talking about standardizing power, and how that ultimately led to the practice of royal fratricide.
Precisely. The experience of the Fête d'Ivry, that decade where brother fought brother and nearly destroyed the entire project, it taught the Ottoman elite that open succession was just too dangerous.
So Mehmed, having witnessed that chaos and having been briefly challenged by his own relatives, concluded that stability required eliminating all potential threats immediately upon his accession.
A brutal answer to a political problem. He codified it as dynastic law canon. It allowed an enthroned sultan to execute his male relatives.
And the justification for this is chilling.
The sources note the justification was for the Nizam-e-Elam, or the good order of society. The state's survival was deemed more important than the lives of a few princes. A stable, swift transition, even a bloody one, was preferable to another decade-long civil war.
That is a fundamental and fascinating institutional shift. It establishes a necessary ruthlessness at the very top. How did the military elite, like the Janissaries and religious scholars, the ulema, how did they react to this?
Well, it stabilized succession in the short term by eliminating contenders, which was good for everyone. The Janissaries, the elite slave soldiers, they initially accepted it because it guaranteed a single source of command. It prevented the internal wars that always messed with their pay and prestige.
But it must have created this terrifying dynamic at court.
Oh, absolutely. The Sultan was now, by law, the ultimate arbiter of life and death for his own family. The court became a place of extraordinary paranoia and power politics.
It also highlights just how adaptable and pragmatic the Ottoman ruling institution was. The sources show they constantly adjusted their own rules for survival. Later, under Suleiman the Magnificent, the whole system changes again.
Right, the link between father and son weakens, and you get succession by seniority, where the eldest surviving male relative is supposed to ascend. That created its own kinds of instability.
So Mehmed's fratricide rule stands as this brutally efficient answer to the specific generational problem he had just witnessed firsthand.
It eliminated internal distraction. With his authority absolute and his house secure, Mehmed II could focus entirely on his external objective.
The Golden Apple.
Which leads us directly to Section 4, the siege and conquest in 1453. And we have to reiterate the colossal challenge here. The Theodosian walls had successfully repelled every attempt at conquest for 1,000 years. This wasn't just a military barrier, it was a psychological one.
And that's where Mehmed's genius and his commitment to technological superiority really shine. He was determined to succeed where everyone else had failed, and his primary tool was cutting-edge military technology, deployed on a scale that was previously just unimaginable.
This wasn't just, using gunpowder. This was mass-producing and transporting industrial-scale weaponry.
The sources confirm the Ottoman army was already among the most advanced fighting forces of its day. They were one of the first to regularly use muskets and cannons. But Mehmed realized conventional siege artillery wouldn't be enough for the Theodosian walls. He needed something catastrophic.
And that's where the legend of the massive cannons and the Hungarian engineer Orban comes in.
Right. Orban was a master cannon founder who initially offered his services to the Byzantines.
But they couldn't afford his prices or the materials needed. Mehmed II was ready to pay anything. The sources detail the creation of this massive supergun, often called the Dardanelles gun or the Basilic.
Just how massive are we talking? I mean, what are the logistics like for this kind of weapon in 1453?
We're talking about a cannon that could fire stone balls weighing over 600 kilograms, some sources say up to 1,200 pounds, over a mile. The logistics of just transporting it are mind-boggling. The sources describe needing 60 oxen and hundreds of men just to move the largest cannon. It took weeks to get them from the foundries in Edirne to the walls of Constantinople. And the firing mechanism itself was a monumental operation.
That kind of power projection isn't just military, it's psychological. Seeing a breach opened by a single massive shot must have been completely demoralizing for the defenders.
Absolutely. The sources describe the relentless bombardment starting after the siege began on April 6, 1453. The immense size and sheer volume of the Ottoman artillery, which also included smaller, more versatile pieces like falconets for closer work, finally achieved what conventional siege engines never could. They blasted open sustainable breaches in those legendary walls.
But beyond the land walls, Mehmed also had to deal with the water defenses, specifically that massive chain the Byzantines had strung across the mouth of the Golden Horn.
Right, that chain was meant to be impregnable. It prevented Ottoman ships from attacking the harbor walls.
And Mehmed's answer to this is just one of the most incredible moments in military history.
He literally moved his fleet overland.
The audacity of it. Portaging 70 ships overland across greased logs and hills to bypass the chain and deposit his navy right inside the Golden Horn.
It was a masterful feat of engineering and operational planning. It completely split the Byzantine defense, forcing them to divert troops to the lightly defended harbor walls. This multifaceted, overwhelming assault artillery destroying the land walls, ships threatening the sea walls, and just superior numbers. It made the city's fate inevitable.
After a relentless, nearly 2-month siege, Constantinople finally fell on May 29, 1453, the definitive end of the Byzantine Empire.
And the dawn of a new global power. The geopolitical consequence really can't be overstated. The Ottoman state, now rebuilt and consolidated, acquired not just a capital, but the perfect capital.
It wasn't just the symbolic value of controlling the heir to Rome.
No, it was commercial and military dominance. The conquest gave the Ottomans unhindered, indisputable control over the vital maritime trade routes connecting the Black Sea, the source of grain, slaves, to the Mediterranean.
They seized the choke point of Eurasian commerce,
effectively demanding a toll from every ship that moved between east and west. This single act shifted the balance of power decisively against the remaining European powers.
With the city taken, the final stage of our analogy begins. Section 5. Rebuilding the new capital, applying the golden lacquer.
The vase isn't just whole again. It's adorned with the most magnificent, valuable prize in the world.
And Mehmed was immediately concerned with transformation and stability. He knew that to rule this new, vast, diverse territory, the old Byzantine capital needed to be a functioning, cosmopolitan, multi-confessional metropolis.
The transformation started instantly, right down to the city's name. The sources note that while the city was officially known by the formal Ottoman name, Sosyenia, the local popular name started to gain currency.
Istanbul.
Exactly, derived from the Greek phrase for to the city. The very act of renaming and repopulating was part of claiming this imperial synthesis.
And that synthesis extended to governance through the implementation of the millet system.
This was the mechanism for managing the vast array of different religious groups they inherited.
This system formalized the limited protection and autonomy granted to non-Muslim subjects, known in the law as dhimmi.
Yes, and this was an immediate priority for Mehmed. He personally ensured the stability of the Greek Orthodox population by appointing a new patriarch, Gennadios II Scholarios.
A critical political move.
A very critical move. By recognizing Gennadios as the head of the Orthodox millet, the Sultan created an official intermediary. The patriarch was responsible for the behavior and loyalty of his community, and in return he was granted autonomy over their religious courts, education, and many internal legal affairs.
So on one hand, it allowed minorities to keep their religious and legal identity, but on the other, it essentially deputized their religious leaders as agents of the Sultan to ensure compliance and tax collection.
Exactly, it was a pragmatic rule. The dhimmi status guaranteed limited freedoms, the right to worship, own property, maintain community institutions, but it also imposed strict legal restrictions.
What kind of restrictions?
Well, the sources highlight things like being forbidden from building new churches or repairing old ones without permission, limitations on riding horses, restrictions on clothing, and a prohibition from carrying weapons.
And crucially, the economic burden fell disproportionately on them.
It did. Non-Muslim subjects had to pay higher taxes than Muslims, most notably the jizya, the poll tax. And this wasn't just symbolic, it was a major, consistent source of state revenue.
So the jizya revenue was meticulously collected and used to fund the very military that protected the realm,
demonstrating that minority subjects contributed directly to the state's defense, albeit through fiscal means, not military service. It was a complex system that balanced religious recognition with financial and social hegemony.
And at the same time, Mehmed turned to the physical city itself, signaling this new imperial grandeur through immediate and massive urban renewal projects.
He needed to transform a decaying Byzantine metropolis into a vibrant Ottoman capital. First, he ordered the walls, breached by Orban's cannons, to be repaired immediately, a powerful signal of security and commitment.
And then came the major long-term construction projects. We're talking about establishing the new center of power.
Indeed, he commissioned the construction of the Saryan Shidi, the new imperial palace, which evolved into the massive Topkapi Palace complex. Construction started in 1465. And this wasn't just a residence, it was a carefully designed bureaucratic and ceremonial center.
And alongside the political center, he immediately focused on the economic heart.
The covered bazaar, the Kapela Charsha, another early commission designed to foster massive economic prosperity and trade, attracting merchants and artisans back to the city.
He was essentially creating a planned economy to revitalize the city.
He was. He encouraged resettlement of diverse populations, Greeks, Armenians, Jews, and Muslims, to repopulate the city and drive that economy.
The sources also show Mehmed's personal commitment to fostering this imperial image through ceremonial life and even sport.
He established essential dynastic customs. Mehmed initiated the practice of holding these elaborate state festivals, known as surnames. And these weren't just parties, they were massive public displays designed to mark dynastic events, like the circumcisions of princes or the weddings of the Sultan's daughters.
What was the real purpose of these elaborate spectacles?
Multiple functions. They are demonstrations of palace power and wealth, assuring everyone of the stability and might of the regime. They were also critical tools for economic stimulation, encouraging consumption and trade, and they integrated the populace into the life of the state.
And even the Sultan's leisure activities reinforced the state's military identity.
Absolutely. The sources note that Mehmed personally designed the first dedicated archery field in Istanbul.
Right.
This wasn't just a hobby. Archery, alongside sarid, or javelin throwing on horseback, was seen as the most important martial sport in the Ottoman domains.
So by promoting archery, a skill deeply rooted in the Central Asian Turkic military tradition,
he was deliberately reinforcing the dynasty's military aristocratic identity. It was a crucial way to counter any perceived softening or excessive Byzantine influence in the new cosmopolitan capital. He was linking the new imperial order back to the centuries-old tradition of military mastery.
So let's bring the analogy home and tie this incredible 50-year recovery together. The Ottoman Empire's journey from 1402 to 1453 is just a masterclass in political pragmatism and military competence.
It really is. Mehmed I and Murad II, they were the meticulous master craftsmen. They spent decades gathering and gluing that shattered porcelain vase back together. They focused ruthlessly on internal stability-crushing dissent like the Shey Bedreddin revolt and securing the borders at Varna in Kosovo. They rebuilt the state structure from the ground up.
They restored the foundation, but it was Mehmed II who provided that final essential touch, the raison d'etre that elevated the state to a true empire. By conquering Constantinople in 1453 using unprecedented technological force, he applied the golden lacquer,
Making the vase not just whole again, but magnificent, infinitely more valuable and symbolically complete than it had ever been before that initial catastrophic break.
It's a staggering narrative, a recovery fueled by an unflinching willingness to adopt brutal policies like codified royal fratricide to ensure stability.
Married with a commitment to technological innovation, epitomized by Orbon's massive cannons. The Ottoman trajectory from near collapse to imperial triumph was not preordained. It was engineered through decades of painful, focused effort.
You know, this deep dive really showcases a critical theme in imperial survival. The Ottoman state only survived its near destruction because its immediate traditional enemies, the Greeks, the Venetians, the Genoese, they failed to cooperate fully with Timur in 1402.
They chose momentary commercial self-interest over the outright destruction of their future rival, which raises our final provocative thought for you to consider. When we analyze the survival of great powers, how often is an empire saved? Not fundamentally by its own strength or genius in that moment of crisis, but simply by the profound disunity, the short-sighted self-interest, or just the lack of coordinated political will among its immediate rivals.
Does the weakness of your enemies sometimes matter more than your own strength?
Exactly.
Something to chew on as you reflect on the gilded sword of the Ottoman revival. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.